What happens when two iron-willed, undefeated champions meet at the peak of their powers? You get one of the greatest contests boxing has ever seen, an absolute blood and guts war that the Ring magazine dubbed not only the best of 1990, but the pinnacle of the entire decade. Set for March 17, 1990 at the Las Vegas Hilton Hotel, the fight between Julio Cesar Chavez and Meldrick Taylor was one of the most anticipated fights of the era. Sitting in the shadow of Buster Douglas's shocking defeat of Mike Tyson in Tokyo only a month prior, many boxing pundits wondered if history would strike twice. Chavez was the clear favorite by pundits and the 9,000-person crowd draped in Mexican flags. But crowd bias aside, Chavez was the frontrunner for a good reason. Entering the bout at 68-0 with 55 KOs, the 27-year-old Chavez was a three-weight world champion with incredible endurance and fists that held the cure to insomnia. And with a connect rate over 50%, Chavez made his power count. Chavez had won 16 championship bouts in total, and was widely regarded as the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. He utilized a forward, squared-up stance, and relied on his spectacular head movement to evade punches, meaning that he could quickly cut off the ring in either direction and catch his opponent with either hand. You can check out my breakdown on his style, which the champ himself encouraged and liked, for more info. Taylor captured gold at the Olympics at only 17. His work as a professional was no less impressive. At 23 years old, he enjoyed a stellar 24-0-1 with 14 KOs. A high-volume speedster, Taylor was pace personified. He had blinding quick hands and fantastic lateral footwork. Taylor had toughness for days, an attribute he'd need to lean on if he wanted to best an opponent like Chavez. Astonishingly, over the first 3 rounds, Taylor seemed to shrug off Chavez's pressure-heavy style. He cut dangerous angles, moving towards Chavez's right hand to escape back to center ring.
A poised and confident Meldrick Taylor controlling the bout with his speed.
This did cost Taylor as he tried to jab out, Chavez punishing him by crossing over a right hand. But beyond this one consistent counter, Taylor was pretty much free to move around the ring as he wished.
That's the key to the fight for Taylor, is get in and get back out.
Constantly backpedaling against pressure fighters like Chavez can be tiring and uncomfortable, so Taylor took back some control of the ring by routinely stopping and getting into close-range scuffles, taking advantage of his speed to throw rapid-fire combinations. A big part of his team's plan was to target Chavez's hips, like Frazier did against Ali. This would not only wear down Chavez's stamina, but also incentivize him to lower and widen his guard. This meant more room for Taylor to sneak in his lightning-fast punches.
Taylor lands a vicious right hand. One of Chavez's extraordinary capacities is his ability to take a punch.
Ironically, Chavez, usually a power puncher, was doing his best work with the jab. He was also finding some success with the short, compact uppercut on the inside. While more of an arm punch, it was still jarring enough to unsettle Taylor. But beyond those attacks and his counter right, Chavez was getting outclassed, even losing at his own game, close-range infighting. A shock to the ringside commentators and the rambunctious Mexican crowd. But Chavez had tremendous power and wore opponents down over time with his limitless stamina and relentless aggression. So, would Taylor's early success here even matter? Or would he implode in the middle rounds like so many of Chavez's opponents before him? Chavez did in fact start to impose his will in round 4 and beyond, closing the gap more and more consistently as the minutes ticked by. But to everyone's surprise, Taylor was pulling ahead during these extended inside exchanges as well. It wasn't just his speed, which was visibly evident, but his team's genius game plan paying off. Targeting Chavez's hips opened him up for more body shots, which in turn cleared routes to the head.
This is a masterful fight with Meldrick Taylor. He's even closing the inside exchanges.
And when Chavez tried to use his head to wrestle and bully Taylor around, disturbing his posture, Taylor wrestled right back, weaving from shoulder to off balance and reposition Chavez, opening up new lines of attack as he did so.
And lead by Taylor. Still trading 4 blows to 1 for Chávez.
Uppercuts further discouraged Chavez's wrestling. stopping him from ducking in low and using his head to bull rush and bully Taylor. But even if Taylor was landing far more punches, it was impossible to stop Chavez from sinking in his famous left hook. Taylor had a tendency to defend his head with a rear side crossblock, especially when at close range. So when Chavez alternated between the short uppercut mentioned before with a looping hook, it forced Taylor to make a difficult decision on where to block, and he didn't always guess right. That aside, Taylor could compete and excel in Chavez's best area, and he was beating him soundly everywhere else. By the midway point of the fight, it was looking bleak for Chavez. The commentators seemed flabbergasted.
But tonight, Chavez, who normally lands upward of 50% of his punches, is down in the 30s.
To make matters worse for Chavez, Taylor proved he was adept at hand fighting as well, forcing his hands inside of Chavez's to control his guard and get a clearer line for his punches. Here he takes the inside position, allows Chavez to take it back, then clamps his guard shut, masterfully setting up a hard hook-uppercut combination.
Solid left hook inside by Taylor. Chavez continues to try to come back with the left of the body. But he is not hurting Taylor.
It was so bad for Chavez that he completely altered his tactics, trying to box and use angles from long range, but Taylor was beating him there too. Chavez tried to get fancy with lateral movement, but Taylor caught him as he shifted angles, stifling Chavez's work with hard hooks and pinpoint jabs.
Crowd chanting Mexico, Mexico, trying to lift Chavez up.
By the ninth, Chavez had been outstruck by over 130 punches. A KO was now a necessity if he hoped to win. And out of his 55 KOs, only 4 had come after round 7. So it was no wonder that Chavez's corner knew there was a serious problem, and they pulled all the stops to light a fire under his ass, shouting, "Do it for your family. Give it all your heart. For the love of God, throw everything you've got, Julio." The ninth bell sounded, and Chavez obliged. He went to work with bad intentions. Taylor, amazingly, didn't even try to stop him. Rather than try and snuff out Chavez's fire, he poured gasoline on it, refusing to back down from the heat of battle. But then, halfway through the round, Chavez found something while infighting. Up until this point, Taylor had been doing very well placing his head on Chavez's lead shoulder. From this position, he could land lead hooks and rear uppercuts. But now, Chavez tried forcing a change, weaving across the center line so that each man had his head on the other's right shoulder. The result of this position was that neither champion was able to turn sideways and hide behind their lead shoulder. With both men far more open and squared up, Chavez took even more punishment. However, for the first time, he was able to consistently land powerful close-range punches with either hand. The Mexican champion had chosen the Spartan's path. He would come home with his shield or on it. And he would take this hyper-aggressive attitude into the 10th, where it would cost him badly. Chavez misjudged a hook, merely clipping Taylor's chin. Taylor powered through it without missing a beat, pushing through the leathered glove to counter anyways, whipping Chavez's chin around with a hook, following through with a tremendous right. Chavez was hurt, but he did not know retreat. His only natural instinct was war. He charged forward, absorbing a bevy of shots before he finally found his defensive rhythm. He evaded a barrage of lightning-fast punches. Straightening up, he sauntered back to mid-ring with his hands low. Chavez had survived nearly being knocked out by putting himself into even more danger and betting his competitor that he was just too good. With his rock-solid chin and iron will, Chavez was made of pure grit. He had survived with his pride intact. And with no better options, he went right back to the more dangerous head position that had just cost him, risking harsh punishment for the mere chance of connecting. And astonishingly, now this do or die strategy paid off. For the rest of the 10th, Chavez gave Taylor a run for his money. What should have been Taylor's most triumphant round saw him taking an inordinate amount of damage. But with 2 rounds left, could Chavez capitalize? While Chavez lacked a lot of late round stoppages, Taylor had only gone past the 10th twice in his 25 fights, and those fights didn't look anything like this. That said, it was Taylor's fight to lose. Chavez's pace grew frantic. Up to this point, it had been a hard-fought battle. Now, it became an all-out war, but having taken Taylor's best shots in the 10th, and knowing that he could survive them, Chavez now had a new set of calculations. If Taylor couldn't put him down for the count, then Chavez could afford to take more risks, even if it meant taking a shot or 2 or 3 to line up his own punches and land one. Taylor's strategy relied on constant speed and movement, and he was getting more tired, his vision more impaired, with every punch Chavez landed. In a dominant moment, Chavez pivoted outside to carve around Taylor's guard with a crushing cross. This punch was poison to Taylor now, but rather than shrink him, it seemed to wake him up.
The best in the last 78 years is in serious jeopardy.
He later paid Chavez back by mimicking the same maneuver, circling to turn Chavez into a corner, but the bell sounded before he could fully capitalize.
But he's got 3 minutes in which to produce an unlikely knockout.
And now, there was 1 round left for Chavez to save his legacy, or Taylor to run out the clock and cement his. Everyone in the arena knew that Chavez needed a knockout, or his insane win streak and hopes of worldwide recognition would come crashing down. Even so, no one could imagine what was about to happen. Taylor was all confidence, pushing forward and looking to make a statement. However, from the start of the 12th, his steps seemed unsteady, and his shots were wide open for counters, Chavez punishing him even as he moved backwards. After Taylor threw himself to the ground with his own missed hook, it was apparent to everyone how tired he really was. He could no longer hide the toll that the battle had taken on him. He was battered and worn down from 11 tough head-to-head rounds. As hard as he tried to hide it, his poker face was beginning to crack. Even still, throwing so hard this late into the fight made something else apparent too, his warrior spirit and desire for a pure victory. But his body couldn't keep up with his mentality. It was like target practice for Chavez, who was relying on accuracy over volume, trusting his power to do the work. With only a minute left, Chavez connected with a solid 1-2, then a left hook counter. Taylor answered with a taunt, pretending to wobble. Ali famously used this trick against Frazier to fool him into thinking he wasn't really hurt. It might have fooled Frazier, but Chavez wasn't buying it. Taylor hurled hard punches, shambling forward. Badly hurt, his autopilot was set on aggression. Chavez smoothly drifted back and changed angles, pivoting out before shooting a right hand that connected solidly with Taylor's chin. With 15 seconds left in the fight, Taylor went down, desperately grasping for the ropes, trying to climb his way up. The crowd erupted in jubilant disbelief as Taylor got back to his feet. But then, one of the most controversial moments in combat sports history. With only 2 seconds left on the clock, referee Richard Steele waved off the fight. Chavez, by the skin of his teeth and the hair on his nuts, had pulled it off. Meldrick Taylor and all of his fans were furious. As stated by ringside commentator Jim Lampley, Taylor was just on the threshold of greatness, or, as the name of his autobiography puts it, 2 seconds from glory. That's why this story is either heartbreaking or inspiring, depending which side you take. Heartbreaking for Taylor, but for Chavez, an incredible example of never giving up, trying with everything you have until finally all of your effort in the face of adversity pays off. If going completely by the rules, then Taylor's inability to respond to the referee's questions means Chavez knocked him out. He won the bout.
You know, I'm not the timekeeper. I don't care about the time. When I see a man that has enough, I'm stopping the fight. There's no fight worth a man's life. I don't care what it is.
Some argue that Chavez had time to connect with a powerful punch, while Taylor was basically out on his feet. But considering there was only 2 seconds left in the fight, there's also a huge argument for just letting the round play out. I'm curious how you feel about it, and I very much look forward to reading the comments. If you like great stories, check out our graphic novel, Mortal Weapons. From the Modern Martial Artist, this has been David Christian, wishing you happy training.